Good evening. Welcome back to After Dark. I'm Nic Pegg. Joining me on the line now to talk about search and rescue, and particularly the use of dogs, is Dave Krehic. Good evening to you, Dave.
Good evening, how you doing?
Good, thank you. What first attracted you to volunteering for search and rescue?
Oh, 20 odd so years ago, I was probably the sort of person that would more likely to be needing rescuing. I was quite keen on a lot of adrenaline sort of activity sports like whitewater kayaking and downhill mountain biking. And I had an accident and I couldn't do the whitewater kayaking for a couple of years, so that's when I ended up getting myself a dog, and I was doing a lot of walking around the Port Hills and things, and and that sort of led me to thinking, oh, maybe I should train this dog for something useful, and then I can still get a bit of enjoyment and adrenaline in another way, maybe helping people.
So had you had dogs before, or was this new to you?
I had dogs sort of around me. One of my family members had a dog, and I'd always wished that I could have a dog, but I was never sort of settled down enough to get a dog. But I suppose this accident that I had sort of made me think, oh yeah, I'll get myself a dog.
So a lot of New Zealanders are used to using dogs, as working dogs on the farm or going hunting with them. But the idea of your companion dog actually being a working rescue dog as well, that's really quite different. Now, the armed forces and the police have dogs trained, and then they're brought in to work. But you've done it the other way around. You've actually trained the dog yourself.
Yeah, ultimately, when you first get your dog, 20 years ago for me, I just picked my own dog, and then decided I was going to get involved into search and rescue. But things have changed a lot now, where when we're selecting our dogs, because they've got to be a pet as well as a working dog. Normally, our handlers will help them select the right breed, and also what we look for within our handlers now is to have a bit of experience in that as a field member and within search and rescue, or have those sort of equal attributes, much like I had already having done a lot in the outdoors, and then the sort of dog stuff comes second to that. But it's certainly very important to pick a dog that your family are going to like as well, because when you come home at the end of the day, training and they've got to be your pet as well.
What's it like? I mean, you must have, obviously you do search and rescue in many different scenarios. I would imagine you must have done some stuff during the earthquakes.
Yeah, my first dog, Stig, he was a German short-haired pointer, and when I first started training him, I trained him in what they call urban search and rescue, but then I specialised with him in what we call wilderness search and rescue, which is, and also Stig did avalanche work as well, so that's another discipline. So our wilderness dogs work in that sort of environment in the national parks, below the snow line, and then we have avalanche dogs as well that work sort of on ski fields and above that snow line. So Stig was a pretty special dog because he actually became operational in both those disciplines, and he had a lot of successes in that, and was pretty special dog, loved by everybody, touched everyone all around the country really, in and out of search and rescue. So it was a pretty sad day to see him go. But
we've got a picture of a dog of yours who's in an aircraft. Is that him? He's in the cockpit of a small plane.
That picture, the to define the difference between my new dog Enzo and Stig. Stig was like a liver brown colour, and he was a short-haired pointer. But my new dog is sort of grey, white, and black, and he's a wire-haired pointer, so he's a lot furrier. So I'm not too sure which photograph.
No, I think it's the latest dog that we've got there. I know it's Enzo. My producer's telling me it's Enzo. So how long did these dogs live? About 14 years. Is that about right?
So once again, sort of when you pick the different breeds, a lot of breeds like a lot of common breeds we have in New Zealand, like the Labrador and the German Shepherd or Alsatian, are popular breeds to train in search and rescue. But generally, their hips and their legs and that sort of go, so they often get retired sort of around that 10 or 11 years old. But the German short-haired and the German wire-hairs, which I sort of favoured, they're a little bit later to mature. So often these two I haven't managed to get to operational status sort of till they're around 3 years old. But then the longevity out of the pointer I sort of find 12 to 13. I worked my old dog Stig till he was 13. But I probably could have retired him a bit sooner, but I sort of pushed him along a bit too far, I think. But so definitely the breeds are very important when selecting a dog and the type of work we do. Yeah.
You must have a very sympathetic employer.
Well, it was quite interesting that you say that, because in those the first 10 years when I had Stig, I did work for a company, and that was probably one of the reasons I actually went into business for myself, because it sort of wasn't fair on them. I was heading off away doing private searches, which are and taking time without pay, because I had no leave left. And when I say doing private searches, so once the police who actually use us or deploy us, once they've closed a search down and basically the funding stops, which is generally between sort of 1 week to 2 weeks after a search has started, if the person hasn't been recovered that's missing, I've sort of always partaked over the years in doing private searches for families, or just doing it off my own back to try and find people's loved ones. And I've got a lot of good friends that are in land search and rescue that have helped me out with that too, and we've had a bit of success over the years, and it gets the dogs out there working as well.
I think it's quite amazing the level to which we both, to which we all still depend on volunteers. I had to visit the building that Meridian have down at Twizel for some reason. And I went in there, and two of the staff, one was dressed as an ambulance person and the other one was dressed as a fire person, because they were at work but they were on call. So they were ready to be deployed at any time out from their office, and obviously the agreement with the employer is that when the alarm goes, off they go to serve the wider community. And it's all very well if you're Meridian and a big company, but there must be some smaller employers who really can't afford that latitude of engagement with their employees.
Yeah, that's correct. I mean, it is. I mean, times are the times are getting tougher, definitely. But I think most reasonable employers obviously value life more than material things, and to me, what's more important than human life. When you put it that way to your employer, I don't think many employers would say no. But if you're away, if you're a specialist team in land search and rescue like myself as a dog handler, we're not only being used in our local areas like Canterbury, but we'll actually, I've travelled as far as Collingwood up over in Takaka, and as far as Te Anau right down south. So because of in LandSAR we've got about 11 specialist groups that might be caving or alpine cliff rescue or kayakers, or obviously us and the dogs. If they need one of those specialist teams, we're always prepared to travel as well. So we certainly all do a lot of that. Speaking on behalf of all my other colleagues and that are volunteer LandSAR dog handlers.
We're almost out of time now, Dave, unfortunately. It's been fascinating talking to you. Would you do this full-time professionally if such a position existed?
No, I don't think I would. I don't think I'd get the enjoyment out of it as much as I do in what I've achieved over the years. Once it becomes your job and you're being paid, I mean, you only need to talk to other people that have gone professional in certain industries, and it does change your attitude. And I think most of us, speaking from volunteers, we all do it for the love of it. And when you bring those lost people home to their loved ones, you know, what's more, I couldn't get. You can't really put a price on that. Certainly some of my most memorable moments been involved in searches with all my colleagues where you've managed to save a life. Yeah, it's pretty cool.
Now, we talk about putting a price on things. Just before you go, Dave, you are a volunteer organisation. You have various mechanisms into place to raise money for funding so that you can operate. Just briefly tell us about those, please.
Yeah, so obviously the government partially funds us, which is a very small amount now, and then the rest of it we rely on donations and obviously fundraising. So LandSAR do have a Give a Little page, and I say LandSAR because that's how it's spelt. If you go to look it up on the internet, which is Land and then SAR, which obviously stands for Land Search and Rescue. So anyone wanting to donate anything to any of us would obviously be greatly appreciated. And you can do that by going onto that LandSAR website. Otherwise, I'm sure you'll be able to put a link on your Facebook page.
Well, we just have actually, Dave. We've got it up right now. Yeah. Hey, Dave, good on you and your colleagues for the very brave work at times that you do. And, of course, our thanks and gratitude to the dogs as well. Thank you so much for joining us tonight. It was a fascinating talk to you.